Hi, in today's video, we are going to build an advanced model where a lot of formula is involved. So let's say the objective here is to build a model like this for a company where they want to see their profit broken down into revenue and expenses, and they want to calculate revenue based on quantity, price, and discount. And the company wants to calculate expenses based on quantity and cost per unit. And I've given the sample formula here. Revenue is going to be calculated as quantity times price times 1 minus discount by 100. And for this example, we are going to assume that whatever this company produces, the production quantity is the same as sales quantity. And finally, I'll also show you how to calculate gross margin once everything has been calculated using a formula like this. Now, to build a model like this, I need to supply data for quantity, price, discount, and cost per unit, which is what I'm doing here. Now, I have a dimension called account where all the values are listed, and this is a bit different from the previous example because my months are spread across columns. So this is actually a cross-tab format if you're familiar with. Now, ValQ can work with different data formats, columnar and cross-tab, so I thought it would be interesting to mix up the model or the data format. So what I have here is 12 months of forecast data followed by 12 months of budget data on the right. So I imported the data file here that you see the 24 months of values followed by the account dimension. And what I did is I also mapped all the 24 months against the value field, because in this model we are going to leave the time period empty because every month is going to be a value or a measure. And what I need to do here is I need to assign the 12 months of forecast first, followed by the 12 months of budget. And finally, I also map my account dimension to the category field. But it is possible to build using ValQ where you're trying to analyze something over a period of 6 quarters or 14 weeks. The solution is customizable. Now in this case, I'm just going to go and click on close. And I'm going to say create a new model from scratch. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to get an empty tree. The first thing that I do once I get something like this is to go and build out the hierarchy. Now under the nodes panel, when I click on the top title, I'm going to see a couple of icons to the right. When I click on the edit icon, it's going to give me a pop-up message that shows more configuration items that I can edit. Now in this case, I'm just going to go and change the title into gross profit, and I'll later show you how to expand on or apply these other options. The second thing I would do is I would go and build the tree model here. And as soon as I create a child, you will see that the model is going to get updated here. So let me create 3 copies of this node. Now let me go to the second node here, and let me just call it revenue. Let me click on finish. Similarly, I would add expenses, and then let me click on finish, and then finally gross profit. But I'm going to calculate the percentages here. Now I have to just go under revenue and then add 3 more rows, which is quantity, price. I've done this a few times, so I know it by my heart, but otherwise you have to look at the Excel model in terms of what you need to build, and quantity, price, and discount. Now I'll go to the expenses side, and then I would add just 2 more nodes. So in this case, it's going to be quantity followed by unit cost. So with this, we have built out a template of the model. You will see revenue. Within revenue, you see quantity, price, and discount. Now I'm going to show you how we can start populating these values. And usually I prefer to start working from the leaf nodes because it's easier for me, because the moment I do something, I'm going to see the values mapped from the data source. So let me now go and explain this to you more in detail, right? So every node here in the model is identified by its unique ID. So even though we have 2 quantities, they both have different IDs here, 4 for the one under revenue and 7 for the one under expenses. Let me just go to configuration right now. Now I know that this is going to be calculated based on data coming from the source. I just have to click on the source key, and you will see that all the numbers from the account dimensions are populated here. I just go and click on quantity because that's what we would like to display. And you can also define time aggregation Now ValQ supports a lot of different types of time aggregation, and I can also select the desired trend so that we can apply conditional formatting. In this case, increase is good for quantity, and I'm not going to fill in the other values right now. Now I have two options to move out from the screen. One thing is I can click on next, which will take me to display, or I can directly jump between sections. Now we're going to keep all of the nodes as a standard node, and I'm not going to allow user to do dynamic scaling during runtime. I want this node to be displaying value at a predefined scale. I don't need any decimal places for quantity, no prefix or suffix either, and I want the pop-up screen to come up when we click on it. Node to be simulation enabled. I want it to show conditional formatting, so everything else can be customized. There are several ways by which you can apply simulation. For things that are absolute values like quantity and revenue, we typically go with change percentage. So essentially the slider that you move around acts as a percentage slider. So if I increase it by 10%, now every other value in the simulation period is going to increase by 10%. So that is what we are going to use for quantity. And finally, I can also give business description here, which is going to come up in the pop-up, and header and footer are items that come up in the pop-up as well. So let me go and click on finish. As soon as I do that, when I expand the revenue node, I see the quantity node being filled. Now I have to just go and click on the price node now, go to the configuration. It is also coming from the data source. I would select price here. Now this time the time aggregation is average, and we are going to make it weighted average based on the quantity node number 4. And the desired trend is increase is good. Now I don't want user to do runtime scaling on the pricing node. For pricing, I'm going to have 2 decimals, and the prefix is dollar and the suffix is per unit. I'm going to leave everything else simulation enabled. And then this time I'm going to use a constant value for future periods, because usually when it comes to things like price, people would prefer to simulate based on absolute values. For example, if the oil price is 47 barrels, and if I simulate it to 48, I would like to see $48 for all the remaining months. I would not like to utilize a percentage change value for the remaining months. So let me go ahead and click on finish. Now, similarly, let me move on quick in the interest of time for the remaining nodes. So I'm going to data source, discount is going to come from the data source. I would select discount, and then here it's going to be an average based on my revenue node. Now for discount, decrease is the desired trend. And for display, I don't want users to scale discount. I would show them 1 decimal place, and I will just have a percentage suffix. And similarly for discount, I'm going to simulate based on the constant method, and I'll click on finish. Now here the discount is going to still show you empty value because we are doing a weighted average based on the revenue calculation. So for revenue, as soon as I fill it in, the discount will automatically get populated. Now under configuration, now the revenue is going to be calculated using a custom formula. So this is where you see ValQ supporting a lot of different calculations. Now here, I can go and type in the @ symbol, and I can invoke something like quantity. Now interestingly, as soon as quantity gets selected, it also gives you a formula preview where quantity is selected so that you can make sure that the right nodes are being used. On the other hand, without using the @ symbol, I can also directly type in the node ID if I know it. And then I'm just going to say, I know discount is node number 6. And as I keep typing this in, it's going to show me a formula preview at the bottom. Now, the time aggregation is sum of periods. And then I'm going to let users allow scaling this node during runtime. No prefix and suffix. The simulation is a standard method. And with this, I have this revenue branch entirely completed. Now let me quickly go to the expense side. It's pretty straightforward. My expense quantity is going to be linked to the revenue node because I always want both these nodes to be linked. So I'm going to link it to node number 4. Now time aggregation is sum of periods. I don't want users to scale on this particular node, and I think everything else is normal. I just click on finish. Now I see expenses also being linked, and that's why you see the link node icon that can link to the other node. Now unit cost, again, it's going to come from the data source. I would select cost per unit with the average aggregation. This time my weighted average node is the quantity node number 7. Decrease is the desired trend, and I'm not going to let users scale on this particular node, but I'm going to show 2 decimal places, and I'm just going to have just a dollar symbol. I'm not going to say per unit because it already says unit cost. Now the simulation for this is going to be the constant value for future periods, and I'll just go and click on finish. Now calculating expenses is pretty straightforward. You don't have to type in formula every time. I would just say that it's going to be calculated as a product of children, so it just takes care of this particular trend. Now decrease is good for expenses. I'm going to let the user scale this, and simulation is everything is normal. And finally, when I come to the topmost node, gross profit, I'm just going to say it's calculated based on a formula where it's going to be revenue minus expenses. And then the aggregation, everything is pretty straightforward. I'll just click on finish. The only thing is I don't want users to simulate on my topmost node, so I'll close the simulation out. And finally, I go to gross profit, and I'm going to calculate gross profit using a formula, which is basically my gross profit times 100 divided by my revenue. The aggregation is going to be average, and the weighted average node in this case is going to be the revenue. And my display, I'm going to show this as a derived node, and I'll show you what a derived node is. And I'm going to have 1 decimal, and my suffix is going to be percentage, and I'm going to disable simulation for gross profit. Now finally, when I click on finish, this is what a simulated node is. So visually you know that this is a separate model. Now I have built a model for you in less than 15 minutes, I believe, and you'll be able to go ahead and publish this onto your ValQ service. The other thing, exciting release that we feature, that is the quick edit feature. So once you have built out a tree, you'll be able to see all the properties in one place, and I can go and edit on any of these properties in one shot right from the quick editor. I can also look at the formula in numeric terms or in terms of a context that business can understand. So again, this is something we have launched a video on our resources section on the website, so feel free to go and take a look at it. So with this, I showed you how to build our models. If you go to ValQ.com, you're also going to see more videos, and we are actively adding more and more videos as far as Microsoft Power BI is concerned. Thank you and have a great day.